You are listening to the Amplifying Leadership podcast, where we explore what great leadership really looks like through our stories, actionable takeaways, and expert conversations. I am Tara Lehman, founder and CEO of Amplifying Leadership, here to help you lead with intention and influence. Thanks for tuning in to today's guest episode. Today, I am welcoming Rabbi Daniel Cohen. Welcome to Amplifying Leadership.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being on your podcast today.
Well, thank you for coming. We have a great topic around legacy and purpose. But before we get there, why don't you tell us your leadership story so our audience knows a bit about you?
I appreciate that. So, right now, I currently serve as the rabbi of a synagogue in Stamford, Connecticut. Been there about 30 some odd years. And I also speak a lot and write a lot about leading a life of legacy, which is really moving from a place where go from crisis to crisis and get serious about life and lead life with a sense of calling. And I would say my early years, when you talk about my leadership journey, was very much driven by my parents. My father always wanted me to think about what my purpose is here, having a sense of mission. My mother of blessed memory was a very grateful person. So I grew up in a house, not lamenting the darkness. We all have challenges, but spreading the light. And that was a message that really influenced me deeply, that to be a leader doesn't necessarily mean you're only a corporate leader. It means that you can have influence wherever you are, and that with the talents that God has given you, you can make a difference in the world around you. And I try to, through my rabbinate, through the books and writing, try to spread the notion that each one of us has something unique to contribute to the world that nobody else in the universe can do. And that's been not only my rabbinate, but my life, and very much blessed with a wonderful wife. I have 6 daughters, 5 are married, and multiple grandchildren, thank God. So we're kind of trying to inspire a lot of people.
Yes. And I love that, when you talk about, leading with purpose in life, and we all go through crisis and everything, and we have to figure this out. Wow, does that ever come into the workplace, right? We got stress, we've got overwhelm, we've got all of that stuff. So why don't you give us, a sense or a bit of an explanation about leading with legacy and purpose as it reflects in the workplace or through business leadership?
Yeah. So, I do think that on a couple of things, when I wrote the book, the book itself, it's called What Will They Say About You When You're Gone? Creating a Life of Legacy. And I was blessed to have a very close relationship with Senator Joseph Lieberman, who was in our synagogue. And, and he wrote the foreword to the book. But one of the main messages in the book is that we lead most by example. In the workplace, it's less about, okay, he was an efficient person. But when we can model in the workplace that we are people, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Senator Lieberman was a person who believed, I want to be remembered not for playing life safe, but for doing what's right.
I like
That notion of leading life with courage, where we are people that are known for doing the principled thing, not what's based on pressure, but not for convenience, but conviction. We're not a person that cuts corners. Our inside and outside, our integrity. To me, that's one of the foundational ideas of what it means to be a good leader, to develop a reputation that your word is your bond. So that to me is like a reflection of what it means to think about legacy and purpose when you're in the workplace. Another example is something I have in the book called Discovering Your Elijah Moment.
Okay.
And that's rooted in an idea that we may not be able to change the world, but we can change the world of one person every day. And in workplaces, it's oftentimes transactional. You did this for me, I'll do this for you. But
Right.
leading a legacy-driven purpose life means that my goal is to anticipate opportunities for kindness without expectation of anything in return. That's the kind of people we want to become, and that also will transform our business environment to be one that is more warm, one that is more anticipatory, and one that ultimately is more transcendent than just what's the bottom financial result of what we're doing, but what kind of people are we going to be? And ultimately, people will come to our companies because of that and be motivated because we're honest, we're good, we're kind,
Hmm.
and of course we're good at what we do, but it has to be animated by all those other values as well.
Yeah, and I want to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned there. The one thing is that as leaders and business owners, we lead by example. So people are going to watch what you do more than a lot more than what you say. So
Right.
if you're saying wonderful things and doing the wrong things, that's not gonna mesh well in business. The
No, that
other
is true.
thing, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just saying that's true. You can keep on going.
Yeah, and then the people versus profit piece. Yes, profit matters, numbers matter. Absolutely, 100%. We never want to dismiss that. But the people are what make that happen. And that's something that I also say a lot is if you have the people there and you treat them well and kind, as you noted, then the profits follow. So it
You know,
really is
100%.
talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that at the end of the day, and I find this in synagogue life and certainly also in business life, which is relationships are the glue.
They really are.
And if
Yeah.
people know that you are looking out for their best interest, they trust you. They're willing to go places with you. You think about their family.
Hmm.
Not again as a like, almost business mindset, but that's just the kind of life that you lead. You'll develop an esprit de corps at your company that is truly, filled with a lot of new light and hope, and people will feel good about coming to work and things like that.
Hmm.
And you'll end up being a place where people just want to be connected to.
And you get a lot more creativity and innovation when people are happy at work rather than not being happy coming in and working 9 to 5, right?
Exactly.
So let me ask you this. If we're in an organization where people aren't leading this way, they're more like, this is what you need to do. You come in, this is your goal, do it, or I'm going to reprimand you type business. What type of challenges are they going to face when they're not leading like in a positive way or leading by good purpose and legacy?
Look, I think that, that's a environment that needs a intervention, basically.
I do too.
Because, again, somebody may say, like, if I'm hard, I'll get the end product. You will, but you're going to lose that person down the road. And
Hmm.
I think, if hopefully somebody within the orbit of an environment like that has the guts and courage to say, let's take a step back. Like, what do we want to be known for as a company? I'm a big believer that
Hmm.
it's important to know not only what your mission statement is, but what's your values statement?
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
what do we stand for? And I think that's important also because um, it also reminds people that oftentimes in the moment of crisis or in the moment where there's a lot of pressure, if you don't know what your values are, you start negotiating them away and you do what's
Hmm.
most convenient. But to take a step back, when you don't have big issues, to say these are our values, then everybody in the firm or company begins to align their decisions through the prism of those values. And then it's
Hmm.
not personal anymore. Like this
Yeah.
isn't just what we do. So that's something that is I think an important strategy.
And values can't just be words. I mean, I was talking to a leader a couple of years ago who everybody was overwhelmed and they just kept saying, I just have to give them more work. But one of their core values at their organization was work-life balance. That's
Yeah,
not happening if you don't lead through those values. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because that creates the legacy as well. If someone leaves, you want them to talk about your organization positively. It's good
right.
PR,
Yeah,
public relations. But if it's not great and they leave, guess what happens? I'm going to tell people, oh, don't work there. They don't live their values. So I'm really happy that you brought it up because it really is how we lead, what that purpose is, and the legacy we leave behind comes from if we don't follow that or if we do.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. I also think that one of the strategies, and this is kind of what I try to do in the book, and I started something called the Legacy Academy that I work with companies, with families, and people, is take a moment to think about what is the kind of prototype that you want to be known for. What are the 5 words you want to be remembered by?
Mm-hmm.
I am with families at the end of life, hundreds of families. And in those moments, what really matters comes to the fore.
Mm,
And then the question becomes like, how do I reverse engineer it and give my company, give my people an opportunity to say, what if, we only had the 24 or 48 hours? What would we really want to be remembered for as a company? And
love
let's
that.
talk about that. And then let's look back and say, well, what can we do now to intentionally align our company, our relationships with those values? That exercise is an extremely important one for the health of the people, but also the health of the company and the future. And that's kind of what I try to do with businesses as well. And at the end of the day, it uplifts everybody because, I really should
Hmm.
have thought about that more because too often we are just going through checklist every day. What did I do? What did I do? What did I
Yes.
do? But are we really leading and acting in a way that is reflective of the deepest aspirations we have, both personally and true to the origin and the values of our company?
And I like that you have the idea of the 5 words too, because companies should be able to say, this is what we're known for, and that be believed out in the community. Right. So I think that's like a really important exercise for businesses. And if they don't have core values set up yet, it's a great way to get some set up. This is what we want to be known for.
Yeah.
So I love that. Yeah. I want to ask, so if we start doing this and we've got a good workplace going, how does it help improve teamwork from not having it to having it so that our audience can see the difference that this can actually do? What are your thoughts
Mm.
around that?
So I do think that one of the key, again, values around this idea of legacy and purpose driven is really rooted in a notion of, it's a faith idea, but it's also an idea that I think we can all relate to regardless of faith, which is everybody is created in God's image. Everybody has something unique to contribute to the world around them. And
Mhm.
when we cultivate an attitude of humility, of not what I like to say, digging for the dirt, but mining for the gold, you'll find that there's a greater spirit of collaboration.
Mhm.
There's deeper grace when people make mistakes. One of the hard things is sometimes people make mistakes, which is normal.
Mhm.
But we don't allow them to move on from those mistakes. If somebody learns from them, don't define everything for the future by that one mistake. Let them start over
Mhm.
again. So when we cultivate, a sense of humility, a sense that everyone has something to contribute, it's a much more inclusive, uplifting, team building, collaborative spirit and removes sometimes the hard competition that pits one person
Mhm.
against the next to say, look, we are an orchestra. You play the percussion, I play the violin, you play the flute. But at the end of the day, we're all playing to one score. And if I can
Mhm.
celebrate what each person's values and notes and music, then our company can really fly. And that to me is part of this whole journey as well.
And I love that you brought up that orchestra scenario. It actually was brought up by a CEO in my company many, many, many years ago when I was in corporate. Same thing. We may all be playing different instruments, but we come together to make beautiful music. And I've also heard the chain, right? Everybody is a link in the chain so that you can use the chain to actually work together. So it really does bring that collaboration, which again goes to innovation and creativity and a whole lot of other things that are beneficial to a company. Um, and learning from mistakes, I'm a big advocate of that and glad you brought it up. I always say that mistakes and failures, they're transformational if you do something with them and you learn from them rather than dwell on it. And you're right, a lot of leaders will dwell on it, even reprimand. But if we've learned and corrected and know a way forward, that's how we grow collaboratively. And, unless, of course, it's fraud or something big,
Right,
obviously,
exactly.
right?
By the way, totally, totally. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I love that you brought that up as well. Let me ask you this. If I'm a new leader in a company, I've just been hired, I'm going to be a manager, and they don't lead this way yet, but I want to. So they're not going to start doing this, right away. How can I help my team at my level if the whole organization isn't doing this yet? it becomes like a starting point. You understand the question, what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think, so you're
Yeah,
new and the company isn't where your head is at in terms of this.
exactly.
And
So
you
how do
have
we
a
work
group
with
of
my
people
team?
that you can influence. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that it gets back to this, another idea that, you try to accomplish too much. This is a statement, by the way, in Jewish
Hmm.
thought. If you try to accomplish too much and grab too much, you do nothing. So just do what you can do. A person's not going to change the culture of the company, overnight by any means.
Hmm.
So then focus on your sphere of influence and then try to um, really model for them and steer them towards leading with these sorts of values. And it also helps, I think, by building relationships. Like if I was a new manager with a group, I would first get to know them personally a little bit.
Hmm.
I do a little mini retreat with them. I take them out for dinner, get to know their families, and just ask them, like, what are your hopes and dreams, for this company, for you personally? Like, what makes your
Hmm.
soul sing at work, not what makes your
Hmm.
soul sing at home? And ask them to listen to them a lot. And then,
Hmm.
I do think that, having opportunities also, by the way, to model these things and inspire them. I'll give you an example. Let's say like
Hmm.
the Elijah moment, which is again about anticipatory kindness without expectation of anything in return. Our goal as a group is going to be each one of us try to find one Elijah moment, and we're going to share it at the end of the week on Friday. What was your Elijah moment this week in the company? So then your
Right.
group becomes known for perpetuating kindness, you know? And what's our, volunteer project we're going to be doing? So people begin to understand that this is not what you're telling them, but this is how you're building this small group within a larger company. And it will impact because somebody else in the company will hear about it and say, well, that's a great
Hmm.
idea. So it just starts small, but it also starts with, I think this is the last point, humility to listen to others and get to know them as human beings, not just as that's the bookkeeper, that's the controller,
Hmm.
that's the secretary. We should never define our roles are not our souls. You
Hmm.
may be the bookkeeper, but that's not really who you are. And I want to get to
Right.
know you a little bit more.
Yeah, it's almost like in those great big large corporations where you feel like a number, but really you have a name.
Yeah,
I was very
exactly.
grateful to be in a company where, even the CEO in Sweden wanted to get to know our names. And that is really, really important because,
Which company was that? I should know about that. It's a good company.
I work for a company called Haldex, but it has since been bought out. But it was a great that was a great time. I
Hmm.
want to ask you a question because when we talk about us doing this as a new manager, our team may not be ready for us coming in that way. How do we get them comfortable that this is a safe place, at least within our team, that you can share with me or you can open up or even talk to me if you're stressed or overloaded? How do we get that conversation started if they're hesitant? Because that might not be normal for them.
I'm going to share something with you. So one of the early things that I learned, I remember this about 20 years ago, is, and I, you know, which is I have this on my desk. It's two hearts.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll tell you what this means. When you open your heart to somebody else, they open up to you.
Hmm.
So I think to be vulnerable, to be open, talk about your own journey a little bit. Like, sometimes people will come in and see the manager. Like, I had my struggles too. We all do. And I just
Hmm.
want to tell you about
Yeah.
one where I made this mistake, and I was grateful for this mentor in my life. So, I think that it doesn't mean you have to, like, bare your soul, but
Hmm.
I think a great conversation with the new team would be, I'm going to tell you about a mentor of mine that influenced me. Like, who is a person that made a difference in terms of your career? And I'll share you mine. I'd love to know yours. We're going to have a lunch. We're going to talk about just we get to know, like, what are the seeds that made us who we are today. And so it doesn't have
Hmm.
to be like you're telling them about, as they would say, page 6 in the New York Post. You're just like opening up, and slowly people will see that you're an authentic, sincere person. And then when you open up your heart to somebody else, slowly they will begin to open up their heart to yours as well.
And I like the idea of starting with something like a mentor because then it's not too personal.
Not exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps them warm up to you before you say, "Hey, tell me about your kids" or something like that, right? It's a
Exactly. Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
great
That's
way.
true, by the
Yeah,
way.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Maybe they don't
I
have
like
kids.
that.
Maybe they're, single. So I do think that
Yeah,
the mentor piece is important.
that's excellent. And I also want to come back to something you said, which is the word listen, because I think you're right. Absolutely. I agree with you. I tell people this. You need to be curious, but you also need to listen. You can't just be curious and not listen because that does nothing for the team. You have to listen and actually listen for that information or that data and what does it tell you so that you can make improvements within your team. So, love that you mentioned that as well. When I leave the company, maybe I retire and I'm the leader. How do I leave that legacy that I've built? My team is collaborative. We're following the culture that I've built. How do I ensure that that continues when I leave? There any
Well, hopefully.
tidbits?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the idea would be you've had people that you've mentored who can kind of carry the flame after you're gone. And I think, by the way, that,
Hmm.
it's always important to, sometimes we think we're going to be at a place for a long time, but don't wait till maybe you're on the way out the door. Just really
Hmm.
try to give people now the opportunity to lead as a way to create more influence and as a way to empower them with those values too. If it's too top down, then the moment when you leave, like, well, they don't know what to do. But if you
Hmm.
really enable them to spread their wings a little bit, I think that's the best strategy, and that has to happen, immediately. I think that's an
Hmm.
important piece. I do think that when you, and I talk about this, institutionalize within your group in a very intentional way the things that you do as a group, even then when you're gone, it's there. So let's say, for example,
Hmm.
Friday is Elijah Moment Day, or every month, we introduce a new volunteer project that we're going to do, or thank your mentor day. And that's things that we do, or whatever it is, then it's part of the culture. So if you can
Hmm.
find ways to create a culture, then even when the manager may leave, the culture sustains itself. Certainly, if you've also inspired the people who are in there to really want to fuel the growth of that culture as well.
I agree with that for sure. So, as we sum up today, is there any final tips or takeaways that you would like to give our audience?
I would say this, like, don't underestimate the power of a simple gesture of kindness. We're
Hmm.
living in a world that is way too divisive, that's very negative. People lose hope, and I've seen countless times in my rabbinate, in my life, that when people have lost faith in humanity, and there's a case in my community a number of years ago, a woman who is in the neighborhood, her husband was killed actually in a botched robbery at their jewelry
Oh,
store.
wow.
Yeah, the store was closed because of everything that was going on. And I remember one day, like it was yesterday, getting a cup of coffee at a coffee shop nearby, and I was getting into my car, and I saw a man who looked like he was re-entering the jewelry store for the first time after the murder.
Mhm.
And I had that moment where I say to myself, do I sit down or do I go and talk to him? And I went over to him. Turns out it was the son of the fellow who was murdered. And I said, look,
Ah,
we've been thinking about you, and if there's anything that we can do to help support you as you reopen, let us know. And I decided then to let my community know when they were opening, and we created these flash mobs of kindness. We had people come into the store just to say hello and to buy stuff.
oh,
And the
nice.
woman who I didn't know, she said to me about a month later, she said, your community restored my faith in humanity when I needed it most. That was just one little gesture. So
Mm-hmm.
keep your eyes open wherever you are. Make sure that no day goes by in your life without doing a act of kindness without expectation of anything in return. That's my best advice. Your life will change, the people around you will change, and you'll begin to lead a more of a intentional life of legacy, not only today, but God willing, for many, many years.
Thank you. And that's a beautiful story as well. Thank you for sharing it.
You're welcome.
So, if our audience wants to learn more about you or even your book, is there a place they find you online?
Sure. So the best way is my website, which is www.rabbidanielcohen.com. They can find out the books, and also The Legacy Academy is an online program that I help people lead that life. It's called www.livelegacyacademy.com. You can also get to it through the general website too.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you for all your insights today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. God bless you. Thank you so much.
A big thank you, of course, to our listeners today. We hope you gained some valuable insights or practical takeaways from today's conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a great rating or review. It is one of the best ways to support the podcast and help us and our guests like Rabbi Daniel Cohen reach more leaders with meaningful stories, tips, and advice. If you are looking to clarify leadership priorities, build strong teams, or empower those around you, I'm here to help. Explore our solutions, offers, resources, and the Amplifying Leadership Circle community at amplifyingleadership.ca, because leadership is better when we do it together.